Welcome back to Dazed and Confused in the Dating Pool and Why It Doesn't Have to Be That Way. I am your co host, Rachel Jenks. This is my co host, Mickler Calapini.
What's up, everyone?
And we are so excited to dive into this week's topic. I'm going to tee it off to you in a minute, Mickler, but I just want to say that this topic is very near and dear to my heart. And I am really, really excited to hear your input as a man into this topic. And I have some stories I'm excited to share this week as well. And what we're going to dive into today is romancing with purpose. And I know that as soon as I read that title, like my feminine heart went,
Yes.
because strong Christian woman, we want to be romanced with purpose. And guys, I have some actionable tips for you. So stay tuned for those probably towards the end. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts of this. And I think it's so important to remember, you know, the Bible talks about marriage being a picture of Christ in the church. And God is the ultimate romancer of us. We were just talking about that in church this morning, of his extravagant love and how extravagantly he pursues us. And I don't know about you, Mickler, but I don't know any person on the face of the earth whose testimony that I've heard who has the exact same story of pursuit, right? God pursues each of us individually and intentionally. And it's such a beautiful thing. And as a woman, as a Christian woman, my heart is to be pursued. And when I look at the model of how God pursues me, that's the way that my heart longs to be pursued. So I think that this is a conversation, again, yet another honest conversation that we don't talk about enough. And I want to preface, as we do every episode, by saying Mickler and I are not dating coaches or experts. We're not pretending to be. We are just two Christian friends sharing about our journey of dating, what we're learning on the way about honoring God and honoring others in the process. So with that, I will tee it off to you, Mickler.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I love how you said that with the title, Romancing with Purpose, it like moved your feminine heart. And I want to just kind of go off of that where I believe that a masculine man has four virtues or four qualities to them. And one is clarity, two is direction, three is integrity, and presence is a factor to what it looks like to be a truly masculine man. And without kind of like diving into like every aspect of it, just say for example for the dating journey, clarity is like, hey, we understand that this journey is about discovering who we are going to choose to marry. Like we're dating with purpose, right? With that intention in mind. We're not just dating to like, how the world dates in a sense, but we are going after marriage and this partnership that we're going to have with this woman. The next thing is like direction. So we're taking the right steps in order to get to where we are trying to go. And I believe that's definitely making sure that our relationship with the Lord is intimate, is really the center of what our heart is at. And then we are in that putting ourselves out there in practical ways, like whether you are just kind of uh on there on dating apps or just kind of out there in the community serving, you're just kind of having this open heart where, okay, I'm going to take the steps necessary to be found. A lot of guys will be like, yeah, it's hard out here, but they literally stay at home. Like you order your Grubhub or whatever, like to your door. You have an Amazon Prime delivery to your door. No one ever leaves. You don't even go to the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? But it's like we're expecting like our woman to show up, at our door too. But it's, it could supernaturally happen that way, but I don't think it will. But um, and then integrity, I kind of want to pause on that one because this is what this whole episode is about, like actions over words, right? But presence is just that when we are in this relationship, that we are super intentional, that we are devoting a lot of our time and our attention when we are in this relationship as well. So I think what we kind of want to unpack here is the fact that a man should be about his action. Yes, words are important too, but are we following through with our words? And I think a lot of like movies make this kind of scene as a joke where it's like there's kind of tension between a husband and a wife, and she'll call him out and be like, "Hey, like what happened to the kids' treehouse?" And then it like pans to the backyard, and there's just like a couple of plywood there, and then nothing's ever built. And he has this, it's like, "Oh, I just been busy, honey, and blah blah blah. Like work has been crazy. I just haven't had time." And I think people also in relationships, like a woman would be like, "Hey, like, um, when is the garage going to be cleaned?" Or like, "Hey, can you take a break from the video games?" And some guys will kind of take that as like, my woman's nagging at me, or she just doesn't let me do what I do. But in reality, she's just losing trust because you said one thing and you just didn't follow through with your actions. And I think this is so huge and important as a kingdom man that if we say it, we follow through with what we're going to do. Um, and yeah, Rachel,
Yeah.
anything?
Oh my gosh, that was so good. Can you list those 4 things again?
Yeah. Clarity, direction, integrity, and presence.
Sign me up for a man like that. Oh my goodness, yes. Like, to quote you 1,000%, right? Seriously, like
Yes.
that is the kind of man that my heart as a Christian woman longs for and is
Mm,
looking for. And Mickler, you hit the nail on the head when you said trust. Because what is so important, woo, I didn't think I was going to get emotional this early in the episode. What is so important for a woman is to know that she can trust her man, is to know that she feels safe, that she feels protected, that she feels provided for. And, it doesn't take a whole lot to chip away at trust. So, some kind of examples of that I want to get into, and this is why this is this is a huge thing that I'm learning on my dating journey, and I just want to put it out there that we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is coming, I promise. But just some ugly stories of how I have gotten burned by this. So many times I think that as people, I'm not only calling out men, but I am particularly calling out the men in the case of this episode. We say things and we mean well, but then we don't follow through. If somebody says something to you and then they don't follow through, how much do you start trusting them that they're actually going to do what they said they would do? Not a lot, right? And so, one of the things for me, one of the main things I am looking for is a man of integrity. What's another way that we say that? A man of his word. We don't just mean a man of words, we mean a man of his word, a man who keeps his word. So, in the last episode, I mentioned this, and ladies, I hate that I have to say this. I shouldn't. Can I just be honest? As a Christian woman, I am upset that I have to say this because men should be men of integrity, and this shouldn't be a thing, but it is. And so I say this to you to challenge you slash encourage you to guard your heart. When a man says something to you, listen to him, but believe his actions. So, one of the examples that I gave is a situation where a guy was like, "Yeah, we should do this sometime." And I was like, "Okay, great. When would you like to do that?" "Well, let me get back to you on that." And then never did. I cannot tell you, and I'm not just calling out that particular guy. I can't even tell you how many times I have experienced that now. It is one of my main frustrations as a woman in dating. And I know from talking to friends, I am not alone in this. If you're not interested, that's okay. But do not initiate and not follow through. That is a huge way to communicate to us that we can't trust you. If you actually do want to get together and you do need to get back to us about something, then there are other ways to do that. Like you can say, "Hey, I will get back to you within 24 hours. Hey, let me check my calendar. I'll get right back to you. Hey, let me get back. For crying out loud, just get back to us, right? Like, and if you're not interested, don't initiate. It's totally okay. Or if something comes up, like, we totally get that life happens, but if you say something, follow through. And I see this so much in conversations that I have with friends who are dating and in my own life. Like, I get very suspicious when a man says that, because then I'm going to see if he does. I have been ghosted that way. I have been wounded that way. Like, I'll get vulnerable and say a very personal one. Not that these others aren't personal, but this one meant significantly more. So I was in a situation earlier this year where I had been in a 2-year, not 2 year. That would have been even worse. No, a 2-month ongoing talking to this guy, kind of pseudo relationship, whatever you call that at that point. In my mind, we were like pseudo dating on the way to dating. And he said, hey, he lived in a different state. And he said, hey, I'm going to be coming to your state. And I definitely want to plan a day for us to do something together if you're up for that. And I was like, heck yes. Like, let's go. And so I got really excited. And then his plans changed, which again, I totally get. But then there was no more mention of it. And I was like, okay. But then he was still calling me and he was still using all these intentional words that made me think that he was still interested to pursue something with me, and kind of kept me on the hook. Can we just be honest? Kept me on the hook. Well, then finally one night I was like, hey, are we doing this or not? Because, like, I date with intention and you've used very intentional words. So are we actually going to meet and, like, see if we want this to go anywhere? And he was like, well, yeah, we can do that. And he made plans. He told me, he was like, okay, this is the weekend that I'm free. I don't have my daughter that weekend. I can come. Let me come to you. Like, okay, great. And I was like, okay, so we're doing this. He's like, yeah, let me work on it and get back to you. Mind you, we had been building a relationship for 2 months at this point. I had dared to trust again when that was something that was not easy for me to do. So I don't hear from him after that. And then the next afternoon, I get this text from him. Hey, so I'm for sure going to be there in August, and I hope maybe sometime in June or July if it works out. And I called him, and he let it go right to voicemail. And I said, what about this weekend that we had arranged? He texted me back playing pickleball, and that was the last that I heard from him. That from a man who had been using very intentional, very future words with me that, by the way, had me in a place, which I probably got to till soon, and I'll be honest about that, but had me in a place where my heart was open to the possibility of moving to his state. My heart was open to some very big things with him because of the way that trust had been built. If I look back, I can see ways that his actions didn't match his words leading up till then. And there were some other things that happened at the end that were pretty awful. But that really sealed it for me. Because here was this man who pursued me very intentionally, certainly with words, but when it came to actions, left me hanging. As a woman who has experienced that in little ways and big ways, how much do you think that I trust you, Christian man who is watching this? That's not an easy thing for me to do. So please be very, very careful with your words and know that your words mean something to a woman. And women, listen to a man's words, but believe his actions and watch for the follow through. If he doesn't follow through, believe him. If he follows through, believe him. It goes both ways, right? So this is something that I just see so often. There was another situation where I was on a dating app, and this guy, again, was very charming, and we had good conversational chemistry and, talked all night, and he was like, sleep well, beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Talk to you tomorrow. Never heard from him again. I guess he wasn't bored anymore. So, and then the guys who were like, hey, we should do this sometime. Great. When would you like to do that? Let me get back to you. Okay, I'll see if you actually do. I'm watching. And as a Christian woman, I hate that has to be the posture of my heart with a Christian man. Because I want to be able to trust a Christian man. I want to be able to know that this man who seems to be a man of integrity really is, that he really is a man of his words. And so I am calling you out, Christian men. Be really, really intentional and really careful with your words, and know that they mean something to a woman. Don't just say, I'll get back to you about that, and then ghost her. You just not only dishonored her, you just destroyed her trust. So whether it's, I'm going to build this treehouse, or I'd like to take you on a date sometime, or I'm going to come meet you, doesn't matter. If you say it, follow through. And again, nobody is perfect. I totally get that. I have said things before and not followed through. And I'm not proud about that. And I have taken ownership of my actions. So mistakes happen. We do things. We get distracted, whatever. I said this to somebody one time and they joked. They're like, oh, maybe it's ADHD. And I said, no, with all due respect, I know very well one of my best friends has ADHD. And first of all, it's not a joke. And secondly, when she says she's going to get back to me about something, she does. When you really want to do something, you find a way. When you don't, you find an excuse. So again, if you are not interested, it's okay. Just please do us a favor and be honest. But if you initiate, please follow through. Please, I cannot stress that enough. Please follow through. If you say, I'm going to call you later, and you get busy, text and be like, hey, I'm so sorry. I was looking forward to talking to you. I got stuck at work. Can we talk at this time later? Right? Like, be really intentional how you steward the trust of a woman and know that it's not something that she gives lightly to you. And I think that is something that maybe a lot of Christian men don't realize for what it is. If you say like, hey, we should talk on the phone sometime. Hey, we should go to coffee sometime. Hey, we should do this sometime. Make a plan and do it, because we're watching you.
Dang. First of all, wait. Like, I want to say on behalf of men that we do this, like, I'm sincerely like sorry, because that is not right, And as you're kind of like painting this picture of like what guys have done, it kind of like, I'm like, dang, I think I've done the same. I've led a woman on and said certain things that kind of gave her the impression like, hey, this guy's going after me, and it's easy for me to just not follow through. And I'm just kind of like, I don't want to give guys the out, as to reasons why they're probably doing it. Like, is it cold feet? Like, are we just scared? I know a lot of guys are worried to plan a date because they don't want to do the wrong thing. Like, if I say, hey, we're going to go do this and that, is she actually going to like the fact that we're doing that?
Interesting.
But, yeah.
Well, then why ask her on a date if you don't actually want to go on a date? That's my question.
Okay, is this the pseudo dating phase? That's a new term for me. I was like,
I don't know. Like, I mean, talking to somebody is a new phase for me. Like, to me, either you are pursuing a relationship or you are not. It's very simple. So, in all of the terminology, but like, if you are talking with somebody on the phone every day, using intentional forward-moving language, talking about the future, in my mind, that's pseudo dating. The only reason I would call it pseudo dating is because we hadn't actually been on a date. right?
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, that makes 100%. Yeah, I agree. You're doing all of the behaviors as if like, hey, we're, leading to a dating relationship. It
Yeah.
just never happened in person type of thing.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
That's what I would say.
that's a good question, Rachel.
Yeah.
Guys, why do we do that? You gotta drop it in the
Why?
comments below.
Like, please, I'm serious. As a Christian woman, like, please tell me, and not just a Christian woman, by the way. I know of women who are of other faiths or not, or whatever, who are also fed up with this.
Mm,
Like, where are the men of integrity? Like, will the real men of integrity please stand up? Please stand up, right? Like,
yes.
you know, that's what we are looking for in the world. That's what we're looking for in our relationships are these men of integrity. And, whether it is, okay, so here's another example. Like, people get so fed up with scammers on dating apps. If you've been on a dating app, you've had a scammer. What is it that's so annoying about the scammer? They have this whole presentation, but it's not exactly at all who they said they were, who they thought they were, and that's how people get burned. So again, this isn't quite as extreme, but if you are presenting yourself in a way to a woman that you have intentions towards her in a romantic way, in a relationship way, right? And then you don't actually act that way, your actions don't match that, what are we left to believe? I mean, in our minds, you're kind of another scammer, honestly.
Dang. Wait, so when you say scammer, are you talking about catfish or
Oh, any of the things.
oh, okay.
Catfish, the super hot Danish model who wants you to board a plane with him to Denmark tomorrow, who's an investor, and you're like, oh, so tell me, what are you looking to invest in on this app? Goodbye. Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about all the other things, and the reason that we get burnt in life is when an experience that we have with someone doesn't measure up to what we believe to be true about them. Am I right?
Mm, yes. Say that again.
The reason we get burnt in life is when an experience we have with someone doesn't align with or measure up to what we believe to be true about that person.
Mm,
In that moment, what gets broken? Trust.
mm-hmm.
In every interaction you make, I'm going to get my brand boss hat on for a minute, but every interaction that anyone has with you on any level is that opportunity to build or break trust. Like, again, not to throw business in here, but because this is also what I do, like, that's branding. So, a man who has wonderful, charming, can we just be honest? Some men are real smooth talkers. I've met far too many of them.
I don't know what you're talking about, Rachel. I just
Right? Like, if you are a smooth talker, if you are making me feel like $1,000,000 with your words, then you say you want to get on a call with me, go on a date with me, whatever, and you can't find the time in your schedule to actually make that happen, yeah, you just branded yourself to me as a man who has no intentionality. Calling it like it is. Just calling it like it is.
and as you're kind of unpacking these like situations, and the thing that I feel like is the reason why us guys do it is because we're addicted to the feeling of like, hey, this girl is interested, and there's like this hunt and there's this pursuit, and then we'll get to that point where it feels really good, and then I don't know, is it like
Is
we
it
get
brain
cold
fart?
feet?
What is it? Like, tell me, please. We really want to know.
Okay, I think one aspect is for especially with like online dating, a lot of guys are worried that we're going to get catfished
Hmm.
because of the plethora or the kind of normalization of like these filters that change like the woman completely, or how these we've seen now, like all these makeup tutorials, like women transform through these things, you know. So no, for real, like they're
Oh,
one
true.
person.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. So I think there's this kind of like we're a little bit scared to,
Hmm.
I guess, find that out, you know, or we're worried in a sense, like, is this woman who she says she is, or who she kind of
Oh,
depicts she is?
oh,
Because I
interesting. Interesting. Is this woman who she says she is? Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what
Actually,
does
so
that sound like? What does that sound like, huh? Huh? Sound familiar?
yeah,
Hot
most
fellas got black?
definitely. And that's so funny that that just came out because when we were planning to do this episode, I was like, yo, I think it's more tailored to the guys. Like, I don't think girls don't are pretty good like following through with their actions, and if they're
All
saying
right.
these certain words. But
So let's call the ladies out. Drop
okay.
the filters. Drop
Yes.
the filters. Drop the filters on your photo and drop the filters on your life.
Mm.
Show up as who you truly are, as who you authentically are. Because if you don't, sooner or later, no matter what it is, if it's life, dating, family, whatever, the real you is going to come out. And if that's
Mhm.
not in alignment with who you have presented yourself to be, that breaks trust so fast. So I'm going to throw a marketing analogy in because I'm the brand boss. So
Let's go.
there's a reason that everybody calls it Instagram fake, right? And so much, this is one of my pet peeves in marketing. There's so much emphasis on keeping up with the competition is doing, what everybody else is doing, what everybody else looks like, right? That it causes people to show up as who they are not. And then somebody has an experience with that company and learns, oh, that's not really who they are. They were just pretending to be, right? We've all gotten disillusioned. Anybody in the entrepreneurial field seen all those photos of like the guys in front of the Lambos, in front of the house, in front of the helicopter. And you're like, yeah, you just rented all of those for that shoot, right? Like we can see through fake a mile away. Why? Because there is a cry in the hearts of all of us that God put there, by the way, for authenticity. There is a reason, and I'm not getting sexual with this, but there is a reason that God said Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed. There ain't no filters in the garden. And in a true relationship, there shouldn't be any either. And so if you feel the need to put a filter on, if you feel the need to present yourself a certain way, what it really comes down to is there's something about yourself you don't like. There's something about yourself that you're not truly accepting. And I can tell you, as somebody who walked the journey of having to learn and love who God made me to be and embrace who God made me to be, and now I do, self confidence is sexy. Lack of self confidence is not. And it goes for guys and girls, by the way. So if you feel the need to put yourself out there with the biggest fish, the trend I will never understand. Never, never. I have never looked at a fish photo and been like, "Ooh, that's the man I want right there. Look at that fish he got." Like, I will never understand that. But whether if you love fishing, then fine, be authentic, but don't put a fish pic just because everybody has a fish pic. Like, to be honest, when I see a fish pic, it usually gets a swipe. Like, nah, been there,
Wait,
done
wait,
that.
wait, 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 wait. Pull this
Yeah,
back, because
yeah,
I'm on the apps and all I see is the girls.
yeah.
You're saying a lot of guys post a
Oh my
picture of
word!
them with a fish?
Every freaking profile.
No way. What is that?
There's two things: the shirtless gym selfie and the fish
Oh,
pic.
shirtless gym selfie is a must, though.
I mean, if you actually have it, I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with that. I'm just saying. Not saying that I totally mind seeing those pics, but the fish pic? Really? Like, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and I was like, please. He brought it up, actually, on the hike. He was one of the hike leaders. And I was like, please explain this to me. And he was like, all I can think of is that they want to show you they can provide. I'm like, in fish? Like,
Yeah,
you will be
interesting.
well satisfied with fish for the remaining of your like what? I don't I don't. I don't get it. Like I just really, really don't. And I feel like everybody does it because every other guy has it. I'm like, listen, if you love
Mm,
fishing, that's awesome. Great. Have fun. I'll even eat the
interesting.
fish that you catch. But there's nothing about having what that tells me if that's on your profile is that you're trying to be like everybody else.
Mm, dang.
There's nothing that makes your profile unique to me.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then I'm gonna say my pet peeve too. Then is I
Go
don't
for
know,
it.
for some reason on these Christian dating apps, women like to use the filter of the devil horns.
What?
Yes, I'm like, what is going on?
That
How
is so messed up on so
I'm
many levels.
I'm telling you, like even if I think she's cute, I'm like, nah.
I
It's
mean,
it's
I
so
see
odd
your true colors shining through.
for
Like,
real.
dang, that's messed up, man.
Yeah. But no, for real, I love what you're saying. Like, just be your authentic self.
Yes.
I would honestly prefer, like, if you just put yourself out there authentically and say, for example, if you are a 7 versus if I put the filter on, I'm this 10 that society says is a 10 because your jawline needs to look a certain way or your nose needs to be arched or, like, or the makeup has to be, eyeliner on point or your eyebrows type of thing. Like, whatever these filters are doing to make you think this is what guys are like going after, I would go with the sentiment that Rachel was saying, like just be your authentic self. Because again, like I think as we develop the relationship, as we're talking, there is that kind of deep pitted fear, like again, like is she who she says she is? Is she who she's portraying to be? And maybe that's why us guys are getting the cold feet, where we're saying, hey, we should hang out or we should do this. I'll go visit you in whatever state you're in, type of thing. But as you're kind of like going through it, it's like, hey, what if I show up and she doesn't look like how
Hmm.
she says, or what she's putting out there? And I know we talked about this in a different episode, like with guys, like the physical aspect of attraction is like what kind of leads us to like want to pursue even more so.
Yeah. Well, that's real. That's real. And I think it's important that we talk about that too. Like, and just a funny story when when you were talking about that, I was like, oh my word. So when I first got back into dating a couple years ago, my first date was a blind date that a
Mm.
business friend of mine set me up on. Thank God it was a double day hike. Otherwise, I would not have made it through this hike. So she showed me a picture of this guy. She showed me his LinkedIn profile picture. And I was like, okay, he's kind of cute, whatever. He looked about my age, whatever. We got there and he looked like he could be my father. And I was like,
No.
oh, I was so repulsed. I was like, I could not even look at him on the hike. Like, first of all, why would you ever think that? He was like 10 years older than me. Like, this, I almost said her name. I won't say her name. This business friend, I was like, what? Why would you do that? And she was like, well, you both are single and I think you both are great. I'm like, you showed me his LinkedIn profile picture. You did not tell me that he's 10 years older than me. So I'm like bumping my camera around. I'm so agitated. But yeah.
Wait, so he was using an outdated photo.
Well, yeah, most people are on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's the photo that
Hmm.
she showed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, if your profile picture is out of date on LinkedIn, please update it because somebody can have a meeting with you and go, whoa, that is not who I thought I was meeting with. Yeah, like 90% of profile pictures on LinkedIn are out of date, but thankfully no fish are involved. So,
Yes.
but yeah, that was like this, like, what? Like I was so grossed out the entire hike. Anyway,
Mm, mm.
like I said, thankfully it was a double date because I mostly just hiked and like looked out there as much as I could and like when necessary, like talked to my friend and like poor guy avoided him at all costs. But anyway,
It would have been very difficult if it was just you and him sitting right across from each other,
oh
right?
my
Like,
word.
right.
If that had been dinner and we
Just
had to
like,
be across from each other, I don't know. I almost would have been like, I don't think it's legal for us to be having this conversation. Like,
Oh, dang.
this is just bleh. Anyway, I'm sure he's very, very nice gentleman, but we were definitely, even like, he tried to make conversation with me. And again, remember, this was very early in my dating journey. I had not yet learned how to honor others as much as I have now. So I don't recommend this. But as much as I tried to avoid him, he did try to make conversation with me, and I tried to be civil. And even the conversation we had, I was like, why? Why would she ever think this was a no, just no. Anyway, side note. But okay, so we've talked about the importance of trust and the importance of building trust. Can we talk about romance now?
Let's go there.
All right. So I want to tell some stories. And, guys, we've been calling you out, and I want to honor some men who have pursued me well. And I want to give you some practical tips on how to pursue a woman. So, a Christian woman, I should say. So, there is this scene in Beauty and the Beast. And all of you girls know exactly what I'm about to say, and you're all going to swoon like I do. So, the Beast is starting to fall in love with Belle. And he wants to give her something. He wants to give her like a token of his love. And so he's having this conversation with Lumiere and Cogsworth. And Cogsworth is like, well, there's always the usual, chocolates, flowers, promises you don't intend to keep. You keep those promises. Anyway. And Lumiere says, no, it has to be something really special. I know, the library. And we all know that famous scene that all of us women swoon over where he gives her the library, and it's the most incredible thing. What is it? It's not that he gave her a library. It's that he gave her a gift that spoke to her heart. We titled this episode Romance with Purpose. Romancing with Purpose, right? How intentionally does God pursue us? How personally does God pursue us? Think for a moment, set dating aside just for a second. Think about your own story with the Lord. How intentionally did God pursue you? How intentionally does he pursue you every day? How personally does he pursue you? Is there some kind of cookie cutter formula that looks like everybody else? No. He is so individual and intentional in his pursuit. And if I can give you men a tip on how to pursue the heart of a Christian woman, be individual and be intentional. And I want to give you some examples of this in my own life. So, not every woman likes gifts. I am not a gift person. There is a thing called the love languages that is very real. And, I had a man who liked to give me gifts all the time, but never spent time with me. And I never felt loved, even though he was like showering me with gifts because he never spent time with me. So for me, some of my individual love languages are quality time and acts of service. So I'm going to tell you some ways that I was pursued romantically that I still remember that spoke so deeply to my heart that might surprise you. So when this one particular man started to pursue me, this was back in the MySpace days, all right? We were on MySpace, and he saw one of my friends who happened to be my best friend, and he messaged her and asked her what my favorite flowers are. And when he came to take me on a date, he had those flowers. Now, I absolutely love flowers. I will put this out there that my cats eat them, so please don't buy them. Take me to a garden. Anyway, I absolutely love flowers. But what meant the world to me isn't the fact that he bought me flowers. It was the fact that he reached out to my friend to find out what my favorite flowers were. That man could have gone to any store, picked out any bouquet of flowers, and showed up at the door, which is what any man out there would do. But that man reached out to my best friend to find out what my favorite flowers are so he could show up at the door with my favorite flowers. That man also, I had my arm in a sling when we first met, and I was working crazy hours, and then I was also teaching ballet in the evenings with a broken wing because I had just been in a car accident. And he found out that I was just like eating basically microwave meals every night. He reached out to my mom, found out what kinds of foods were my favorite. And when I got home, I had Tupperwares of food for the week, and not just any food, my favorite food, so that I didn't have to eat microwave meals. And by the way, he kept that up for weeks. Now, again, that on the outside looks like a gift, right? And it was a gift. But for me, it was the intentionality behind it. He reached out to my mom. He found out what my favorite foods were. He bought the stuff, he cooked it himself, he left it at my door. He took care of me. That was hugely romantic for me. Another thing this man did is I lived in upstate New York at the time, and it was winter time, and we got a lot of snow where I lived, like a lot of snow. And it's pretty normal, right? You get out in the morning and you're dreading it because it's freezing cold and you don't want to be out there anyway. And then you got to brush off your car so you can even get in it and chip the ice off. And it's this whole process. Well, where I went to church was across the street. We met at a movie theater at that time. And this particular man always got there early to help set up. Well, when we started dating, he would come extra early and totally brush off my car, chip all the ice off, everything. So that when I woke up, all I had to do was get in my car and go to church. That to me was one of the most romantic things he ever did. There was a situation that I talked about a couple episodes ago where there was this guy who lived 3 hours from me. He drove 3 hours to meet me for the first time. That was incredibly romantic to me. 3 hours one way, by the way. I was thanking him for it. At the time, I had a crazy schedule. I was working 68 hours a week, 60 to 80 hours a week, and going back to school online for my design degree. And I didn't have a lot of time. And by the way, he didn't either. He was a news anchor. He was super busy, pulled in all different directions, videographer for a hockey team, like all kinds of stuff, had his own business, crazy busy. And I was thanking him and I was telling him how much it meant to me that he would drive to meet me. And he said, you know, Rachel, I know that you're super busy, but would you let me know if you even have like 10 minutes to go for a walk? Because I would gladly drive 3 hours one way or 3 hours each way just to come for a walk with you. You want to talk about swoon? Like, ladies, what did that just do to your heart? Because I know what it did to mine.
That moved my heart. I'm over here taking notes, you know?
Yeah, take notes. Take notes. So what I am saying is like, there is a way to do this the right way. And if you really want to romance with purpose, don't romance a woman, romance her. Get to know her. Like, did you see the intentionality and the individuality in the things that I shared? Right? Like, there was another guy. Okay, so I'll share this other guy who took me on my first New Year's date ever. And it was a lovely evening. And he was like, hey, I'd really like to take you out for New Year's. It's like, that would be great. I'd love to go out for New Year's. And so he found out that I'm gluten-free. And he called me the next day. He's like, okay, I'll let you know tomorrow what we're doing. I'm like, okay. He had researched all the gluten-free restaurants in the area, found out the best ones and which ones still had availability to get in for New Year's. And to me, yes, we went out for a very lovely steak and wine dinner, which is always a win in my book. But beyond that, it was the intentionality of like, hey, I want to make sure not only is this gluten-free, but this is one of the best in the area and that they have availability and whatever. I mean, he could have taken me anywhere. So in all of these things, it's the intentionality that speaks to me as a woman, that speaks to my heart, and the individuality. And this is one reason that it makes me so sad. And I get the point of this, and we're going to talk about this in another episode, but this whole like talking to multiple people thing, because no woman wants to feel like she's a runner-up. Do you? Like, do you like feeling like a runner-up? I know I don't. And so I think a lot of guys pursue a woman, with words, which again, words are beautiful. Words are wonderful. I am a words girl. I love words. They mean something to me though. So remember that. But also, what is the language of her heart? Don't just show up with flowers and chocolate. What are her favorite flowers? What's her favorite color? What would happen if you showed up for the date wearing her favorite color? What if you found out that there's a special snack that she really loves and you just surprised her with it? What if, and again, those are all gifts, right? So it doesn't have to be gifts. So let's say her love language is words of affirmation. What if you just wrote her the most beautiful good morning text? What would that do for her, right? What if her love language is acts of service? And when you drop her off, you notice that her door is a little off its hinges and you fix it for her, right? Like the options are endless. And I think that guys have this idea of what romance looks like to a woman. And I want to say, as a woman, that's not what it looks like to all of us. And so this is my prayer in my heart as I pray for my husband every day. Lord, release to him the strategies of heaven of how to pursue my heart, not just the heart of a woman, the heart of this woman right here. So if you want to romance with purpose, and by the way, in a way that will woo her, let me tell you, be individual and be intentional in your pursuit. When she's talking, pay attention, pick up on those details. When I have a conversation with somebody and they pick up on those details, boom, that gets my attention real fast. We're having a conversation a day or two later and they're like, yeah, especially with your background in ballet, that must be really, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you remembered that, you know? And so these little things that seem so little are huge to the heart of a woman. So pay attention, not just to her pretty face. Pay attention as you're getting to know her. What makes her come alive? If you know that she absolutely hates bowling, please don't take her bowling. Like, this is a side note, but please don't ever take me out for Italian, please. It is my least favorite food genre. I have never liked pasta. I know I'm weird and I'm gluten-free, so it's like the genre I can eat the least of. And I can't tell you how many guys are like, oh yeah, let's go to this great Italian place. No, thank you. Like, get to know me. Get to know me. And by the way, it's a two-way street, ladies. Get to know your man. Get to know those little things about him. What is it that you can do to bless the other person? Again, not just a generic women like flowers, women like chocolate. I have friends who hate chocolate. I know that's bizarre to me too, but they exist, right? Like, what are the unique things that make them come alive? What makes them feel seen, valued? What makes her heart feel pursued? And then pursue her that way. And if you don't know, ask her daddy, because nobody knows her heart better than he does.
Jeez. That was amazing. No, and it's funny because you kind of opened this up with the movie Beauty and the Beast, and I was like, dang, is this girl about to go like on some like romance, like kind of worldly thing, you know, like where is she taking this? But I love how you said like it was about the intentionality of it. Like she loved books, you know, so Beast was like, oh hey, like here's the library. I didn't even realize, I didn't put the two to two together, but
You never put the two and two together before now?
No, I did not.
You're welcome. Yeah, like that's what made Belle come alive that day. It wasn't just that it was the library.
Yeah.
It was that he saw her. He didn't just pursue her the way that you would pursue a woman. Belle was not like every other woman in her town.
Yeah.
She was women didn't read. She was very unusual. She was considered an outcast. People made fun of her for reading. But it was something so dear to her heart, so precious to her. And what did he give her? A whole library full of books, more than she could ever fathom. That's what made that gift special. That's what won her heart.
Dang. Okay, so then for the practical thing for guys, I could be wrong, but I don't believe many guys are aware of the 5 love languages.
Ooh.
You know, so maybe that's a reason why you know, we have difficulty romancing. And then also like how you put like giving flowers and chocolate. I think we've seen that done in movies very often, you know. So we're just kind of like, oh, it's been modeled to us that way, so let me just follow through with it. But what you're saying, it was like, no, like what are her specific things that she
Yeah.
enjoys the most? Like, what if she doesn't like chocolate, but she loves hot Cheetos? Like, I would bring the
Yeah.
hot Cheetos instead. You know what I'm saying?
Come on. Yeah. 100%. And what if what would really, really speak to her is if you change the oil on her car?
Interesting.
Hot
Interesting.
Cheetos, change the oil on her car. Brighter, just a kind note, a kind text in the morning. You know, like,
So then you would hit that. Okay, so then you're saying maybe if we don't know the 5 love languages or what her specific ones are, go through the range of them.
well, you
And
can. You can do that and be like, let's see, let me check this one off. Did that do anything? Nope. All right, let's try the next one. You can. I mean, there's no harm in that. I mean, in all of these things, you are showing appreciation and love and respect and honor for this woman. So I don't see anything wrong with that. I would say that it really comes down to paying attention. I
yes.
think, are
Yeah.
you paying attention in the conversation? What words does she use a lot? What
Mm-hmm.
stories is she telling? What things is she telling you that are meaningful to her?
Mm-hmm.
Does she, you know, I know guys are physical touch and I totally get that, but does she seem to especially enjoy hugging you? You know, or like, does she talk about, like, oh, yeah, like, thank you so much when you did this? You know, oh man, my mom did this for me today. Oh my gosh, it was incredible, you know, or like, oh yeah, my sister got me this and surprised me with it. Like, okay, well, maybe it's gifts. And then look how she shows love as well, which by the way aren't necessarily the same thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's some overlap there too, right? Because like gifts isn't one of my love languages, but food definitely is.
Yeah.
So
I think food is the universal love
I
language for
think food
everyone.
is a universal love language. As long as, you know, don't bake me cookies that I can't eat, right? Like,
No,
you
yes, yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Or if the girl's very health oriented, don't take her to McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're taking a girl to a date at McDonald's. We're gonna have words, boy.
cheap date. You know, that's like we appreciate the cheap date.
Friendship date. No, there is no circumstance under which McDonald's is an appropriate date. Never, never. First of all, A, that's not actually food.
Yeah, no, just true. That's true. That's true.
Two, that is not.
That was a bad example. I'm sorry. That
That's
was
a
a bad
very bad
example.
example.
I have not taken a date to McDonald's. Okay, for the
You're like,
record.
let me just clear my name here.
Yeah, for real. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, what if she likes tea and you take her to this coffee place? Like maybe they have tea, but what if they don't?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know? I mean, there's just all these little nuances. And I think it really goes with anything. That I try to be a very intentional person in getting to know somebody. How do they
Mhm,
pronounce their name? How do they spell their name? What's meaningful to them? What makes them come alive? You know,
mhm,
how much can I learn about this person? And then while I'm out, right? Like yesterday I was hiking and I saw one of my best friend's favorite flowers in the field and I took a picture because it made me think of her.
oh,
So
wow.
like I could have just taken a picture of mountains and sent it to her. Total, I mean, you know I do that anyway. But like no, like oh my gosh, here's literally her favorite flower, which is very rare to find and I know that. Let me take a picture and send it to her and she was really touched. So the more individual and the more intentional that you can be, the more a woman feels pursued. And that's huge. Like, that's what romance looks like to a woman, at least to this woman. I know I don't necessarily speak for all women, but I think I probably speak for a good majority, right? Particularly Christian women who want to be pursued. Like, the more that she feels like, I see you, I choose you, I am pursuing you, woo, swoon. Like, start fanning myself, like, yes, you have my attention.
No, and I love how you said that your friend who is a woman, you saw something that stood out to her and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to send this to her because I'm intentional with my relationships." And I
Yeah.
think that's what us guys should try to develop as well. Like we mentioned this in the last podcast or like how myself like learning what does, you know, if like if we could be friends it was like world, it was like, no, we can't. But then in the church, they were saying like, no, you can't. But then also in a different church, I had to like learn how to develop a healthy relationship with the opposite sex. But I think having good relationships in general, where you're intentional with your best friend too, who's a guy, or or your family member, your brother, your sister, you're intentional with them. This will help you in your dating relationship as well.
Totally.
So
Maybe her love language is memes, right? Maybe her love language is memes. Like, it doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but it can mean so much. Like, I sent a friend something the other day when it was a eye roll dad joke, like Christian dad joke that I knew he would love. Yes. Right? Like, again, that's being intentional in my friendships, being intentional in my relationships. Hey, this made me think of you. What does that say to that person? Oh, that person really knows me. That person really sees me. That person really values me. Mm-hmm. That's what we all want. Isn't that what God does with us?
Yeah, no. And I think a practical tip, I was made fun of this one time with one girl, but I would literally take notes on my notepad or in my contacts. So I'm giving my secret out. Like, I will put like her favorite food or like the order at Starbucks. Like whatever.
You got her Starbucks order? Yes,
yeah,
bro.
specific. Well, because those could be complicated. Like
they can be complicated.
But yeah, I think for us guys, like there's a lot, especially if we're kind of more going for depth with a woman. There's a lot of like, I won't remember personally a lot of these specific things. Like, I'm the worst with birthdays and stuff, so I have to put it on my calendar. Okay.
Oh, but see, I just want to call you out in a good way on that. I want to honor you for that. Because you said, I know I don't remember, so I have to put it on my calendar. Which goes back to this like words and actions aligning. What you are intentional about, what you prioritize, you will be intentional about. Which is why if you're not prioritizing a woman, if you're not being intentional with her, then what you're telling her is she's not a priority to you. So, it's easy for us all to say, oh, I forgot. Oh, I got busy. Oh, I got whatever. No. Does that happen? Yes. But you just said it. You're like, I have to put it on my calendar so I don't miss it.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, take notes from Mickler right there.
Take note that you should take notes.
Yes.
So you can revert back to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe if it's after the date, you just pull out your voice memo app and just like, yeah, so I noticed she said this and I remembered she talked about this and and like.
Yeah. So would you say it's a good compliment when the woman says, "Hey, you're a really good listener"?
Yes. That is a big compliment. Yeah. Because she's not only saying you listened, she's saying you paid attention. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. You actively listened.
Yeah, and we kind of opened up with that in the beginning, like, the 4 kind of traits or virtues that a man should have. Presence is one of them. So if you are actively listening and paying attention to the woman, then you should be picking up on these intricate details of her, so yeah, guys, put on your intentional ears.
Absolutely. It goes a long way. I'm telling you, it goes a long way with women. I was on a hike a couple weeks ago, and this guy was like, "So, Rachel, tell me your life story." And I was like, "Oh,
we're going there, huh?"
Like, okay, so we were walking around and hiking around and talking and whatever. And throughout the day, like, we got into a conversation about what I do with personal branding and everything, and he had never heard of it before. Multiple times throughout the day, he would reference that. He'd be like, "Oh, that's not well marketed. They should talk to you, Rachel. They're not even showing their face." And it was just those little things that I was like, dang, like, I just met this guy and he really paid attention. And he wasn't even necessarily trying to pursue me, I don't think, but it was just this like, wow, another time I was like holding the menu for other people and they're like, "Wow, you're really good at that." And he was like, "Yeah, she's had some experience in the marketing world." And so it was just this like, just again, little tiny things to somebody else. But to me, I was like, wow, again, it's that I see you. I see you. I don't just see a woman in front of me. I see you. I don't just see a man in front of me. I see you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I kind of like just to, put a stamp on it. Like, if you are having trouble kind of romantically pursuing on purpose, like go back to how you were wooed by Christ Jesus, how
Yes.
you were wooed by God. Like for me, I tell a lot of people like, yo, Jesus is hilarious. Like he's super funny because he'll do certain things that it's like, it makes me laugh, and I'm like, that's very specific. So
Totally.
if we go to that as the model of like, hey, like he wooed my heart to draw me closer to him, that's what I can do as I'm pursuing this
I
woman.
think it's so interesting that you gave that example, Mickler. So for you, it's humor. For me, it's experiences. When I think about
Mm,
how Jesus woos me on a daily basis, I was going to say, I'm like, oh, it's sunrises, or like a bird flies across my path, or like these things, right? Or like I have this, this person text me out of the blue with this word of encouragement or whatever. If I really think about it, it's experiences. How I love to be wooed is experiences. So,
mm,
like
interesting.
surprise adventures and picnics and all that kind of stuff. I think that's interesting. I had never like correlated that until you just said it. So, yeah.
Nice. That's good. No, I love experiences too. Like I'm quality time. So like me spending time with Jesus and him and like just showering me with his love. And I'm just like, like I live for those moments too. So
For real. It's good stuff right there.
most definitely. Cool.
Cool, cool. Shall we land this plane?
Land it.
All right. So, just to sum up what we talked about today, first of all, remember that every interaction you have with any person is that opportunity to build or break trust. And if you break trust, then that is how that person will remember you. And as a Christian man, know that the heart of a Christian woman longs to be able to know that she can trust you. But in order for her to be able to trust you, you have to show that you are trustworthy. And a big part of that is being a man of your word, not just a man of words. So be very careful and very intentional with the words that you use and make sure that you follow through with those words. And women, be very careful and very intentional that you are in a posture of observation. I can't tell you how many times I've been sucked into a man's words too fast and gotten burned. So make sure that you sit back a little bit in a posture of observation. When he tells you something, listen to him. When he shows you something by his actions, believe him. Know your worth. And if it's time, move on. And to the men, remember how intentional and how individual God is in his pursuit of each one of us. And know that that is the secret to pursuing the heart of a woman, romancing with purpose.
Hope this episode has been helpful, super insightful. If it has, give it a like. And we have some ideas as to like what episodes are going to be coming out. We're going to be talking about chemistry and other things, but we're curious to know as well, like what topics would you want us to kind of like unpack and have the conversation around? So drop it in the comments below.
And please share this episode with anybody you know who would benefit from the conversation we had today. It would mean the world to both Mickler and I if you would do that.
Yes. All right.
And
So
subscribe.
subscribe too. We'll see you on the next one.